This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good morning everyone. Shalom Aleichem, Bruchim Habayim. So we're learning now the laws of Neigel Vasser. It's interesting, the Seif Cedarhurst of Rabbi Moshe ben Machir, who we mentioned was the author of Maidani, he gives 3 reasons why you should have to wash your hands 3 times. One of them we mentioned yesterday, that there are 3 different Ruchos Ra. And the Cedarhurst himself says that he saw this pshat, v'im kabbalah hi nekabel, but he does bring it out that there are 3 different Ruchos Ra. Each one is removed by another washing. Then he says that the hands are bechezkas tuma gedola, and therefore you need 3 times to remove chazaka. By the way, Tamei HaMinhagim brings that one down. And then the Cedarhurst says, Ein lecha zuama gedola mizuamas hanachash, and the raya is you need to pour 3 times like you need iroi 3 times for klei yayin nesach. So these are 3 different reasons why you pour 3 times. Now I misread the Bir Halacha yesterday. Bir Halacha says that the dieved, if you only washed, somebody in Antwerp pointed this out, the Bir Halacha is not talking about if you wash 1 time. It's talking about if we wash 1 hand. In other words, can you wash 1 hand without the other? So the Bir Halacha says you could, from the Artzes Chaim, you could remove the tumah of 1 hand without removing from the other. Lamaisa, Rabbi Vadi Yosef in the Yabi Omer, Chelek Daled, Siman Aleph Oisyud, he brings from the Ben Ish Chai in the name of the Arizal. No, that's a different Shuvah actually. The Yabi Omer, this is Chelek Daled, Siman Aleph, that mistama, if you go to an eatery, the worker, even if they're Jewish, probably clean their hand 1 time, and 1 time removes ruach ra. Look in the Atar Zakenim. So that's not the Bir Halacha, but it's the Atar Zakenim. The Stipler in the Orchos Rabbeinu Chelek Gimel, page Kuf Pehei, he brings that in the morning you could assume that most people, before they get out of the house, they end up washing their hands at least 3 times. Now regarding touching bodily orifices, I believe, even though the Mishna and the Artzes Chaim say the eyes, it refers to all the orifices. And the reason for that is it's a Beferish Gemara. The Gemara says that a hand that touches the eyes blinds it, that touches the ears causes it to become deaf. The Achronim say it refers to all the bodily orifices. The Lashon of the Gemara in Shabbos says Yad Mesame, Yad Machareshes, Yad Malafilifos, and there's a Machloikis Achronim. Is that only the inner cavity? And that's the opinion of Rabbi Yaakov Emden. On the other hand, others want to say that if you look in the Torah in Siman Vav, it says Kishamavri Yadav Aleinav Omer Poikeach Ivrim. That's talking about where your eyes are closed. That seems to indicate you're allowed to touch from the outside. Okay. Now, let us see Sif. Hey, lo yiga begigas shechar. Do not touch a barrel of wine. Shemishmush hayad mafsed hashechar. Touching too much ruins the beer. Now, the Mechaber doesn't say, is this talking about before you wash Neigel Vasser or stamazoi? Meaning, we learned in Sif Daled that even someone who washed his hands should not touch where he excretes from because it could cause hemorrhoids. That has nothing to do with Neigel Vasser. So, possibly when the Mechaber says in Sifhei, Lo yiga begigas shechar, shemishmash hayad, mafsid ha-shechar, don't touch a barrel of wine because touching it ruins the shechar. Is that before Neigel Vasser or after? So the Mishnah says like this, mafsid ha-shechar. The naga b'machal koidem shenat al yadav. Here the Mishnah doesn't get into whether it's talking about before you wash Neigel Vasser or after. We'll see in the Ber Halacha that if you touched food before you washed your hands, ein lesar machal ideza. We're not going to answer the food. So you're not supposed to handle the food. But if you did, you don't have to throw it out. You should be very careful not to touch the food. If you did touch it, you should wash it 3 times. Interesting, he brings in the Dirshu that Reb Chaim says even a food that you generally peel, you still should wash it 3 times. Ashan tabak koydem til sidayim. You also should not smoke before you wash Neigel Vasser. What's the reason for that? The Malbim says the reason is because you're going to touch your nose. Okay. But Bizman Hazeh, you shouldn't smoke ever. Because it's begeder ma'abed atzmoi ladas. Every cigarette you take, you lose 11 minutes of your life. So, okay. Oh, to smell it. Okay. Is your girsa lishtois? What do you have in your Mishnah Berura? Lishtois? Lishtois. Okay. Let's see the Bir Halacha. Bir Halacha says, Lo yiga begiga, so tzalemer, achar natila. It's talking about even after you wash your hands. Mishum kilkal hashechar. You're going to ruin the beer. You handle the beer too much, it's ruin the beer. Aval b'koidim natila ayrim ma'uma. Before the washing, it's not talking about that. Amnam bebach v'taz uber hagra, hiskimu, the koidim natila asaliga begil shel shechar, then they shaydeza yuchal hachnas ruach ra, l'toich hashechar. The achrayim say that there is a specific issur to touch it before, aside from the fact that you're going to ruin it, and that is you're going to be machnes into it ruach ra. You're going to damage the drinkers. Ula divrayim pashut. Now, according to these achronim, it would come out obvious. You should be very careful not to drink this kind of beer. Meaning, the eitzah that we gave that if you touched food, ein lesar machal yidezeh. Well, there's an eitzah, you can wash it 3 times. What are you going to do? You're going to wash the beer. The Chayadim also brings this lahalacha. The Malbim Lamaisa is lenient. If you did touch it, you don't have to throw it out. You could drink it. So it seems like when it comes to food, there is more leniency than when it comes to drink. When it comes to food, b'diavad, you're allowed to eat it. You should try to rinse it off. You can't rinse it off. Let's say it's a kind of food you can't rinse it off, b'diavad, you're allowed to eat it. When it comes to a drink, according to many achronim, you can't drink it. Okay. Sif Vav. Ein tzarech revius l'natilas yadayim l'tefila. You do not need a revius of water to wash your hands for davening. Says the Mishnah Berura. Ein tzarech, ro'et soloimer, diavad. Ein ma'akev habracha u'mevarach al natilas yadayim. Meaning, b'diavad, if you don't have revius, it does not preclude you from making a bracha, and you still make al natilas yadayim. L'chadchila toiv lahakbid she'eloi gam ken revius. L'chadchila, you should try to get a revius. Like it's written in the next sif, the koi gam al she'eloi revius, because the next sif is also going on obtaining a revius. U'chamash shekasvu ha'achroinim. Now, that means, in other words, the Mishnah Berura is saying, b'diavad, it's not ma'akev the bracha, but l'charchila you should try to get a hold of revius. Says the Bir Halacha, ein tzarch ayin Mishnah Berura, l'charchila you should try to get a revius, v'chein badin. That's logical. Acharei de hara'a machmer gam l'inyan bracha, g'mash gasav agra. There are rishonim that say if you don't have a revius, you can't make a bracha. V'gam ha'prisha machmer machmazel inyan bracha. The prisha is also machmer. V'after shar poiskim l'achmer k'vasai, even though most poiskim are not machmer that way. Okay, however, Siv Zayin, Toiv lahakbid benetilas yadayim shachris b'chol hadvarim hama'akvim benetilas yadayim lasuda. It is a good thing to be makbid about all the things that one is makbid, that are ma'akev, regarding washing one's hands for a meal. You should be makbid for netilas yadayim in the morning. Haga miu eino ma'akev loy kli v'loy koyach gavra. Nevertheless, a kli is not ma'akev, and koyach gavra is not ma'akev. Ushar hadvarim ha'posam netilas hasuda. So it's a good thing to be makbid. However, it's not ma'akev. Says the Mishnah Berura, "Ein ma'akev v'tzolemer di'eved le'inyan habracha." B'di'eved is not ma'akev regarding a bracha. V'yuchal levarich al netilas yadayim. So b'di'eved, if you don't have it, you can make the bracha. Or l'charchila, if you don't have another eitzah. If you can, you should be makbid. There's a shaila. What about chatzitza? So the Dirshu brings down from the Eish Avram Buchach that it's a question whether there's an inyan of chatzitza netilas yadayim shachris. It's l'charchila a good idea to be choishesh. However, in Madura Tinyana, the Eish Avram brings that netilas yadayim shachris, there's no din of chatzitza. The Shulchan Aruch Harav is makbid. So come out, if let's say somebody has a little boo-boo in the morning, which the kind that you have a Band-Aid, the kind that you would, let's say, remove for netilas yadayim for a meal, it seems like there is some basis that you would not have to remove it for netilas yadayim for shachris. In other words, the din of chatzitza, it's not borur, applies regarding netilas yadayim by shachris. Okay. Says Mishnah Berura, cutting it down, loy kli ratzalaima demahani af lahava ruach ra. You might get confused over here. You might think the din that we're saying that it's when the Ramah says it's not ma'akev a kli or koyach gavra, that's only legabe for davening, but maybe for ruach ra it is ma'akev. So very big chiddush over here. For ruach ra it's not ma'akev. And therefore, if you don't have a whole kli, mutter lito mikli nakav. It is permitted to take a kli with a hole in it, a pump, av she'en kan kayach gavra. You have something that just automatically, without any human effort, gives off water. So it can remove the ruach ra. Kamavar lekaman bilchas netilas yadayim. If you just stick your hands into the river and you rub them 3 times, it's not going to take off the ruach ra. So lamaisa, we were discussing a few days ago that the Mishnah Berura is mashma that if a person gets up in the middle of the night, they do not have to wash Neigel Vasser. That's what we said that the Mishnah Berura is mashma. And I spoke to a number of people about it. And yes, the Mishnah Berura is mashma that one is not required to wash Neigel Vasser if they get up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, even though there's a potential that somebody could be touching an orifice because you're just getting up in the middle of the night. However, there is a question regarding whether one is allowed to say a bracha in the middle of the night if they have ruach ra on their hands. However, according to what the Mishnah Berura is saying over here, the lamais, if somebody goes to a bathroom in the middle of the night and they wash their hand from the sink and they don't have a kli and they stick their hands in the water 3 times, so it's not ma'akev, meaning it removes, not only are your hands clean legabe making the bracha, but it would remove the ruach ra, at least b'di'eved, to be able to say a bracha. Okay, let's see the Mishnah Berura, let's see the Be'er Halacha, Sivkatan, Toiv HaMa'akvim. Nira didvarim she'ein b'netilas yadayim rak zehiros l'charchila ein sarch kan lizar b'zav v'chein kasperim gadim. In other words, those things that are ma'akev for netilas yadayim l'charchila, you should be careful when you wash your hands in the morning for shachris. Those things that are only a hiddur for netilas yadayim for bread, then one is not required to be makbid on for netilas yadayim for shachris. One more Be'er Halacha. Ushar hadvarim. Ayim v'agavim s'gadim gimel prim v'gadim shemvar dvarav. The kavanas ramah b'zeh rak le'inyan emamayim pachas meravius. This halacha that it's not ma'akev for netilas yadayim in the morning, those things that pasel netilas yadayim suda, that's if the water is less than a vis. But if the water is pasel, then the ramah would be machmer like the yesh oimrim, not to make a bracha. However, miber agrosh halagazu mashmad mefarish laharamad disrele debdiavad einoi ma'akev klal b'shum davar. The Gura has a more lenient view of the Ramah, that the Ramah is being lenient regarding all types of psulim on the water. V'chein me'emes ma'aseh pasha delishna the Ramah Because we already said in Sivkatan Zayin that the Achroinim do not hold like this Yesh Oimrim, but rather the Mishnah Berura said in Sivkatan Zayin that the Achroinim hold that you can make Netilas Yadayim in any case. You don't have to make Netilas Yadayim. You could always say Al Netilas Yadayim even with water that is pasal. Okay, Rabbi Isai, I'm going to wish you all a great day. Bracha v'atzlacha, and we'll see you tomorrow. Kol tov.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.